Hey, welcome back to the channel, King Bullet here. So in today's video we're going to be going over how strong Hiruzen is, the third Hokage, also known as the god of shinobi. I will briefly go over all of his versions, including the third Hokage in his prime, probably what most of you want to hear about. I do have information about the third Hokage that most likely you don't know about, so it might be worthwhile sticking around until the end of the video, at least. Anyway, let's get into this video. Hiruzen Sarutobi was the third Hokage of Konoha, and is one of the most esteemed shinobi of his time, if not of all time. Apparently his potential surpassed Tobirama in childhood, and he would go on to train the 3 legendary Sannin, renowned for his mastery over the 5 different elements and releases. It is stated that he mastered all of the jutsu, at least all of the jutsu in Konoha. Because of this insanely impressive feat, he was dubbed the Professor. But not only did he learn every jutsu in his village, but apparently mastered each one of them, having access to even special hidden jutsu that belong to certain clans within the village. It's a little bit contentious if he has access to things like all 8 gates. He excels in intelligence, he's very smart, he's considered literally the wisest ninja, and has an affinity for fire style, since he comes from a Sarutobi clan, who are known for their fire style jutsu. Without wasting any more time, let's go into power scaling. How strong is he? We'll start off with the power of Old Man Hiruzen, back in part 1. Well, there's an obvious anti-feat. This happens in Magino's flashback, which some of you may know about if you watched the Boruto anime. There's a ninja called Magino, and as a child he hurts Hiruzen. Obviously this doesn't mean that he got harmed by a kid, but most likely lowered his chakra, and was therefore hurt when he lowered his guard. This should be obvious, but you'll be surprised how many people don't understand this. For example, in Kakashi Hiden, Kakashi gets harmed by a random ninja once he's lowered his chakra, despite being as strong as his warlock self, according to him. Scaling Hiruzen around this time is a little bit difficult, because a lot of people think he's relative, or roughly around the same level as Orochimaru, considering they're swapping hands with each other and contending with each other. Orochimaru himself is quite powerful at this time, since he killed Raza, who even when reanimated can match Gaara, a Gaara who could react and block attacks for Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke. This Sasuke can actually easily take on Biju, like the 8 Tails, and can even contend with the 4th Raikage. So Orochimaru is quite easily high Kage level at this point, and Hiruzen should at least be the same level as Orochimaru, and this is fairly consistent, since at the time of his death was still considered the strongest of the 5 Kage. At the beginning of the fight between Orochimaru and Hiruzen, both were unquantifiably weakened since they are mentally nerfed, which is a big deal, since in part 1 of Naruto, your mental resolve kind of determines who wins fights for the most part. So what do I mean by this? Orochimaru literally stabbed himself at the beginning of a fight, since he wasn't sure if he would be able to bring himself to kill his master, and the same goes with Hiruzen. He wasn't sure if he would be able to kill his pupil, since he still cared about him. Orochimaru had the upper hand against Hiruzen at the beginning of a fight, since Hiruzen was struggling to even combat the reanimations that Orochimaru had summoned, both Hashirama and Tobirama, but he then eventually overwhelmed them once he found resolve. And then after this, Orochimaru and Hiruzen swapped hands for, according to the data book, nearly an hour in an equal pitched fight. Hiruzen was eventually able to overwhelm Orochimaru, outspeeding him and knocking his Kusanagi blade out of his hand. But he was only capable of doing this since he initially distracted him. Orochimaru had just grabbed Enma, so there's no way he could really move in his situation anyway. What's quite impressive here is that Orochimaru blocks Enma from pushing him. However, Enma was actually capable of pushing base Kurama out the village. Do remember that Kurama is capable of turning the world to ash, and should be able to tank his own energy. Moving on to Orochimaru, but more specifically, his Kusanagi blade was so powerful and sharp that it was harming Enma. Apparently it was sufficient in compelling a cry out of Enma. And Enma is actually stated to be the strongest summoning in part 1, making him stronger than Gamabunta, who could actually contend with the One Tails, for example chopping his arm off. So I wouldn't be surprised if Enma ranges anywhere between Biju level and high Biju level. You have to remember Hiruzen also made shadow clones during this fight, which did probably weaken him since he doesn't have too much chakra as an old man. According to the Onbu Black Ops, he lost some of his life energy or something when doing this, so his fight's a little bit of a mess. We're not sure who's stronger, so what we have to do in this situation is look at statements. Hiruzen himself suspects that he himself cannot actually beat Orochimaru, and that they would need the 4th Hokage, for example, in order to beat him. Orochimaru, on the other hand, is confident that he can take Hiruzen, but that book even says that Orochimaru is powerful enough to clearly state that he's superior to the 3rd Hokage, so he has enough power to do this and make this statement, implying that it may be true. The data book also states that the 3rd Hokage is nothing but a boring pastime for Orochimaru, also saying that the Professor, the 3rd Hokage, said with all his knowledge he's still no match for Orochimaru's talent. And even though we know that there were a lot of determining factors in this fight like suppression, mental suppression, fatigue, apparently the main deciding factor between the two was age. So if Hiruzen was 10 years younger, he would have beaten Orochimaru, but he didn't. So I feel like all of this implies that Orochimaru may have been slightly stronger, but they're at least both relative to each other. Okay, so we know that he should be high Kage level, even high Biju level potentially. How strong is he as an Edo Tensei, or as a reanimation? Well, we know during the war arc he has a few impressive feats. For example, like fighting Guru Zetsu and a Buddha statue, which was capable of contending with the 5 Kage, so this might support the statement of him being stronger than the 5 Kage, which should be pretty obvious at this point. He creates 5 different clones to counter the elements that the Buddha statue is using. As for speed, he was actually capable of outspeeding Tobirama, so Tobirama wasn't capable of saving Naruto from the vines, since he couldn't really keep up with the speed they were kind of like enveloping Naruto at, whereas Hiruzen had to come in and save him by blitzing these vines. But it may have been the case that Tobirama was more fatigued than Hiruzen at this point, since he had been more involved in the fight with Obito. Speaking about Obito, Hiruzen was slightly able to react to him, but he doesn't really move out the way of his attacks. If I'm being honest, even Tobirama has better speed feats against Obito than he does, kinda supporting the premise that Tobirama was more weakened than Hiruzen when trying to save Naruto. So reanimated Hiruzen should be obviously weaker than his alive self, but I don't think by a lot. So he's comfortably high Kage level, high Biju level again, but he has a bonus of having better stamina when reanimated. Now moving on to the big boy stuff, how strong is Prime Hiruzen? Is he really stronger than all of the Hokage, as the legends imply, or is he just really overrated? Perhaps he's even stronger than you thought. So where do these statements about him being the strongest Hokage come from? Well, the first time it's ever stated is by Iruka. Iruka states that the 3rd Hokage has superlative strength compared to even the other Hokage, or at least he used to. It's said in past tense. Obviously Hiruzen comments on this, asking him why he said it in previous tense. He's clearly saying this in a joking sense, implying he isn't the strongest anymore, but him once being the strongest was still stated as a fact. The databook makes it clear that he was the strongest of the Hokage, and revered as a professor, and then stated again, he continues to be esteemed the greatest Hokage of all time, but more impressively, the most powerful of all time, and a genius who could not find a fitting successor. If you're using the fanbook, it even says that he's said to have surpassed all his predecessors. A lot of people might say these are either hyperboles, or these titles have been retconned, but technically there are no anti-feats to this. Now, can I validate these statements? I have a very weird method of scaling you could use to potentially support these statements. However, we're gonna have to use a Boruto anime to support this. We know that an adult Konohamaru fights a much older, experienced Jugo. They have a really cool fight scene. Konohamaru is capable of cutting him, outscaling him, and outspeeding him. Of course, this is a Curse Mark 2 Jugo, so how strong is Jugo in Boruto? Well, we know that Jugo is capable of beating this guy called Tosaka, who states to have the strongest Curse Mark, and that Orochimaru can't even hold a candle to him. Anyway, Jugo completely decimates this guy. He literally pummels him completely, and even absorbs his Curse Mark into himself. So Jugo could possibly be far stronger than Orochimaru at this point. Now this isn't Shippuden Orochimaru, there are a lot of different versions of Orochimaru, however the Boruto version of Orochimaru is probably the strongest. So how strong is Boruto Orochimaru? Well, in Naruto Gaiden, Naruto, Sasuke, Sarada, and Chocho, when pursuing Shin, take a trip to Orochimaru's hideout. While they are there, Naruto is in Sage Mode, and he tells Sasuke this place isn't safe at all, and that he should keep his guard up due to Naruto sensing a threatening power. He even keeps his Sage Mode on after encountering Suigetsu and Jugo, meaning he doesn't see them as threats to him. He only switches it off when he notices that he was sensing Orochimaru this entire time, meaning that Orochimaru was a threat to base Naruto and even possibly Sage Mode Naruto. So how strong is base form Naruto? Naruto is able to take a kick from base form Momoshiki, and he's also able to swap hands with fused Momoshiki, which is more impressive than the other current Kage, since they all get one shot by this fused Momoshiki. And the other current Kage are still pretty strong too, since they can swap hands with Kinshiki. Both base Momoshiki and Kinshiki are both threats beyond Kaguya. So Orochimaru may scale beyond this base Naruto, who scales to these other Otsutsuki, and this might actually be consistent, because Orochimaru goes on to fight Victor. Orochimaru proves that he's capable of harming Victor, and Victor is an inner member of a Kara group. Every inner member, according to Sasuke, have powers on the same level as Otsutsuki, so all of this actually might be really consistent. So back to the main point, current era Konohamaru scales beyond people who are stronger than Orochimaru, and Orochimaru should roughly be the same level as base Naruto. So Konohamaru by default, maybe Otsutsuki level using this scaling. Now is there anything else to validate this? Well, during the fight between Konohamaru and Jugo, Konohamaru does state that Jugo is the strongest opponent that they've ever faced. Now this depends on how you interpret it. Either he's referring to who they've encountered as a team, or they're straight up talking about the strongest opponent Konohamaru has ever seen. Note that Konohamaru has seen base Momoshiki and Kinshiki before. Obviously using that is a little bit more flimsy. Is there anything stronger than this? Well, in the Boruto anime, Konohamaru swaps hands briefly with base Jigen, who's outclassing base Naruto, so this might solidify the fact that Konohamaru scales to at least base Naruto, if not above him. Obviously eventually, Konohamaru gets overwhelmed by base Jigen, but he was performing slightly better than base Naruto was. Anyway, you're probably wondering, how does this link back into Prime Hiruzen? Well, Konohamaru in the anime does also state this. He states, I will never surpass my grandfather unless I train like he's gonna kill me, meaning he still hadn't reached that level. Now is he talking about old man Hiruzen? Probably not. since he clearly has scaling beyond Old Man Hiruzen at least, meaning he must be comparing him to another Hiruzen. It'd have to be Prime Hiruzen. If not Prime Hiruzen will be even stronger, since this would literally make him Otsutsuki level. So is Prime Hiruzen Otsutsuki level? Possibly. I know the scaling was really wacky and weird, but you have to remember, Hiruzen was like stated the strongest of all time. Does that literally make him the strongest of all time, at least at the time? Possibly. I don't expect anybody to actually like fully believe this, but it might actually hold up in a debate, I feel. If you're using these arguments, the Prime Hiruzen scaling was just meant to be fun. Obviously, I did do a lot of research for this, so it'd be much appreciated if you could sub and like the video. If you don't like the scaling, don't take it super seriously. If you want to debate me on it, I will link down my Discord. I've got like a new Discord. It's called Reach. The link to it will be in the description. I hope to see you there. If not, you can actually comment in the comment section as well. You can give your opinions on how strong you think Prime Hiruzen is, or you can let me know down below what kind of videos you want to see. This should wrap the video up. Thanks for watching until the end, and peace out.